Welcome to Advanced Con Ed 2-Hour Oklahoma 2015 Fuel Gas Code Update Part 2. Advanced Con Ed presents Portable Ladder Safety. Preface: this presentation is intended to provide a generic, non-exhaustive overview of a particular standards-related topic. This presentation does not itself alter or determine compliance responsibilities which are set forth in OSHA standards themselves and the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970. Moreover, because interpretations and enforcement policy change over time, for additional guidance on OSHA compliance requirements, the reader should consult current administrative interpretations and decisions by the Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission and the courts. Introduction. Workers who use stairways and ladders risk permanent injury or death from falls and electrocutions. OSHA rules apply to all stairways and ladders used in construction, alteration, repair, painting, decorating, and demolition of work sites covered by OSHA's construction, safety, and health standards. Stairways and ladders are a major source of injuries and fatalities among construction workers, and many of the injuries are serious enough to require time off the job. Stairway and ladder hazards can be eliminated or substantially reduced by following good safety practices. This presentation examines some of the hazards workers may encounter while working on stairways and ladders and explains what employees and workers can do to reduce injuries. OSHA's requirements for stairways and ladders are in Subpart X of OSHA's construction standards. Introduction continued. Falls from portable ladders, step, straight, combination, and extension are one of the leading causes of occupational fatalities and injuries. Read and follow all labels and markings on the ladder. Avoid electrical hazards. Look for overhead power lines before handling a ladder. Avoid using a metallic ladder near power lines or exposed energized electrical equipment. Always inspect the ladder prior to using it. If the ladder is damaged, it must be removed from service and tagged until repaired or discarded. Do not use a self-supporting ladder, for example, a step ladder, as a single ladder or in a partially closed position. Do not use the top step or rung of a ladder as a step or rung unless it was designed for that purpose. Training requirements. Employers must train all employees to recognize hazards related to ladders and stairways and instruct them to minimize these hazards. For example, employers must ensure that each employee is trained by a competent person in the following areas as applicable. Nature of fall hazards in the work area, correct procedures for erecting, maintaining, and disassembling the fall protection systems to be used, proper construction, use, placement, and care and handling of all stairways and ladders, and maximum intended load carrying capacities of ladders used. Note: employers must retrain each employee as necessary to maintain their understanding and knowledge on safe use and construction of ladders and stairs. Glossary. Cleat. A ladder crosspiece of rectangular cross-section placed on edge upon which a person may step while ascending or descending a ladder. Double cleat ladder. A ladder with a center rail to allow simultaneous two-way traffic for employees ascending or descending. Failure. Load refusal, breakage or separation of components. Fixed ladder. A ladder that cannot be readily moved or carried because it is an integral part of a building or structure. Handrail. A rail used to provide employees with a handhold for support. Job-made ladder. A ladder that is fabricated by employees, typically at the construction site, non-commercially manufactured. Load refusal. The point where the structural members lose their ability to carry the load. Glossary continued. Point of access. All areas used by employees for work-related passage from one area or level to another. Portable ladder. A ladder that can be readily moved or carried. Riser height. The vertical distance from the top of a tread or platform/landing to the top of the next higher tread or platform/landing. Sidestep fixed ladder. A fixed ladder requiring a person to step to the side of the ladder side rails to reach the landing. Single cleat ladder. A ladder consisting of a pair of side rails connected together by cleats, rungs, or steps. Stair rail system. A vertical barrier erected along the unprotected sides and edges of stairway to prevent employees from falling to lower levels. Glossary continued. Temporary service stairway. A stairway where permanent treads, indoor landings are to be filled in at a later date. Through fixed ladder. A fixed ladder that requires a person getting off at the top to step between the side rails of the ladder to reach the landing. Tread depth. The horizontal distance from the front to back of a tread, excluding nosing, if any. General requirements. These rules specify when employers must provide stairways and ladders. In general, the standards require the following. When there is a break in elevation of 19 inches or more and no ramp, runway, embankment, or personal hoist is available, employers must provide a stairway or ladder at all worker points of access. When there is only one point of access between levels, employers must keep it clear of obstacles to permit free passage by workers. If free passage becomes restricted, employers must provide a second point of access and ensure that workers use it. When there are more than 2 points of access between levels, employers must ensure that at least one point of access remains clear. Employers must install all stairway and ladder fall protection systems required by these rules and ensure that worksite meets all requirements of the stairway and ladder rules before employees use stairways or ladders. General requirements continued. The following general requirements apply to all ladders, including ladders built at the job site. Double cleated ladders or 2 or more ladders must be provided when ladders are the only way to enter or exit a work area where 25 or more employees work, or when a ladder services simultaneous two-way traffic. Ladder rungs, cleats, and steps must be parallel, level, and uniformly spaced when the ladder is in position for use. Rungs, cleats, and steps of portable and fixed ladders, except as provided below, must not be spaced less than 10 inches apart, nor more than 14 inches apart along the ladder's side rails. Rungs, cleats, and steps of step stools must not be less than 8 inches apart, nor more than 12 inches apart, between the center lines of the rungs, cleats, and steps. Rungs, cleats, and steps at the base section of extension trestle ladders must not be less than 8 inches nor more than 18 inches apart between the center lines of the rungs, cleats, and steps. The rung spacing on the extension section must not be less than 6 inches nor more than 12 inches. General requirements continued. The following general requirements apply to all ladders, including ladders built at the job site. Double cleated ladders or two or more ladders must be provided when ladders are the only way to enter or exit a work area where 25 or more employees work, or when a ladder services simultaneous two-way traffic. Ladder rungs, cleats, and steps must be parallel, level, and uniformly spaced when the ladder is in position for use. Rungs, cleats, and steps of portable and fixed ladders, except as provided below, must not be spaced less than 10 inches apart, nor more than 14 inches apart along the ladder's side rails. Rungs, cleats, and steps of step stools must not be less than 8 inches apart, nor more than 12 inches apart, between the center lines of the rungs, cleats, and steps. Rungs, cleats, and steps at the base section of extension trestle ladders must not be less than 8 inches nor more than 18 inches apart between the center lines of the rungs, cleats, and steps. The rung spacing on the extension section must not be less than 6 inches nor more than 12 inches. Common stepladder hazards. Damaged stepladder, ladders on slippery or unstable surface, unlocked ladder spreaders, standing on the top step or top cap, loading a ladder beyond rated load, ladders in high traffic location, reaching outside ladder side rails, ladders in close proximity to electrical wiring or equipment. What is an extension ladder? Also known as portable ladders, extension ladders usually have two sections that operate in brackets or guides, allowing for adjustable lengths. Because extension ladders are not self-supporting, they require a stable structure that can withstand the intended load. An extension or straight ladder used to access an elevated surface must extend at least 3 feet above the point of support. Do not stand on the top 3 rungs of a straight, single, or extension ladder. The proper angle for setting up a ladder is to place its base a quarter of the working length of the ladder from the wall or other vertical surface. Be sure that all locks on an extension ladder are properly engaged. Common extension ladder hazards: damaged cleat or rail, Ladders placed on slippery or unstable surface. Not extending the ladder 3 feet above the landing surface. Not properly setting the ladder with its base a quarter of the working length of the ladder from the wall or other vertical surface. Unsecured locks. Standing on the top 3 cleats. Loading ladder beyond rated load. Ladders in high traffic locations. Reaching outside ladder side rails. Ladders in close proximity to electrical wiring or equipment. Rules for ladders. All ladders. The following rules apply to all ladders. Do not use single rail ladders. Maintain ladders free of oil, grease, and other slipping hazards. Do not load ladders beyond their maximum intended load, nor beyond their manufacturer's rated capacity. Use ladders only for their designed purpose. Use ladders only on stable and level surfaces, unless secured to prevent accidental movement. Do not use ladders on slippery surfaces unless secured or provided with slip-resistant feet to prevent accidental movement. Do not use slip-resistant feet as a substitute for exercising care when placing, lashing, or holding a ladder upon slippery surfaces. Secure ladders in place in areas such as passageways, doorways, or driveways, or where they can be displaced by workplace activities or traffic to prevent accidental movement. Or use a barricade to keep traffic or activity away from the ladder. Rules for ladders continued. Keep areas clear around the top and bottom of ladders. Use ladders equipped with non-conductive side rails if the worker or the ladder could contact exposed energized electrical equipment. Face the ladder when moving up or down. Use at least one hand to grasp the ladder when climbing. Do not carry objects or loads that could cause a loss of balance in falling. Use ladders and appropriate accessories only for their designed purposes. Do not move or shift a ladder while a person or equipment is on the ladder. The top of a non-self-supporting ladder must be placed with 2 rails supported equally unless it is equipped with a single support attachment. Rules for ladders continued. Ladders must not be tied or fastened together to create longer sections unless they are specifically designed for such use. When splicing side rails, the resulting side rail must be equivalent in strength to a one-piece side rail made of the same material. 2 or more separate ladders used to reach an elevated work area must be offset with a platform or landing between the ladders, except when portable ladders are used to gain access to fixed ladders. Ladder components must be surfaced to prevent snagging of clothing and injury from punctures or lacerations. Wood ladders must not be coated with any opaque covering except for identification or warning labels, which may be placed only on the face of a side rail. A competent person must inspect ladders for visible defects periodically and after any incident that could affect their safe use. Rules for ladders continued. The minimum clear distance between side rails for all portable ladders is 11.5 inches. The rungs and steps of portable metal ladders must be corrugated, knurled, dimpled, coated with a skid-resistant material, or treated to minimize slipping. Non-self-supporting and self-supporting portable ladders must support at least 4 times the maximum intended load. Extra heavy-duty type 1A metal or plastic ladders must sustain 3.3 times the maximum intended load. When portable ladders are used for access to an upper landing surface, the side rails must extend at least 3 feet above the upper landing surface. When such an extension is not possible, the ladder must be secured and a grasping device such as a grab rail must be provided to assist workers in mounting and dismounting the ladder. A ladder extension must not deflect under a load that would cause the ladder to slip off its supports. Rules for ladders continued. Fixed ladders. If the total length of the climb on a fixed ladder equals or exceeds 24 feet, the ladder must be equipped with a safety ladder device or self-retracting lifelines and rest platforms at intervals not to exceed 150 feet, or a cage or well and multiple ladder sections, with each ladder section not to exceed 50 feet in length. These ladder sections must be offset from adjacent sections, and landing platforms must be provided at maximum intervals of 50 feet. In addition, fixed ladders must meet the following requirements. Fixed ladders must be able to support at least 2 loads of 250 pounds each, concentrated between any 2 consecutive attachments. Fixed ladders must also support added anticipated loads caused by ice buildup, winds, rigging, and impact loads resulting from ladder safety devices. Rules for ladders continued. Fixed ladders continued. Individual rung/step ladders must extend at least 42 inches above an access level or landing platform, either by the continuation of the rung spacing as horizontal grab bars or by providing vertical grab bars that must have the same lateral spacing as the vertical legs of the ladder rails. Each step or rung of a fixed ladder must be able to support a load of at least 250 pounds applied in the middle of the step or rung. Minimum clear distance between the sides of individual rung/step ladders and between the side rails of other fixed ladders must be 16 inches. Rungs of individual rung/step ladders must be shaped to prevent slipping off the end of the rungs. Rules for ladders continued. Fixed ladders continued. Rungs and steps of fixed metal ladders must be corrugated, knurled, dimpled, coated with skid-resistant material, or treated to minimize slipping. Minimum perpendicular clearance between fixed ladder rungs, cleats, and steps and any obstructions behind the ladder must be 7 inches, except that the clearance for an elevator pit ladder must be 4.5 inches. Minimum perpendicular clearance between the center line of fixed ladder rungs, cleats, and steps and any obstruction on the climbing side of the ladder must be 30 inches. If obstructions are unavoidable, clearance may be reduced to 24 inches, provided the deflection device is installed to guide the worker around the obstruction. Rules for ladders continued. Fixed ladders, continued. Step across distance between the center of the steps or rungs of fixed ladders and the nearest edge of a landing area must be no less than 7 inches and no more than 12 inches. A landing platform must be provided if the step across distance exceeds 12 inches. Fixed ladders without cages or wells must have at least a 15-inch clearance width to the nearest permanent object on each side of the center line of the ladder. Fixed ladders must be provided with cages, wells, ladder safety devices, or self-retracting lifelines where the length of the climb is less than 24 feet, but the top of the ladder is at a distance greater than 24 feet above the lower levels. Rules for ladders, continued. Fixed ladders, continued. Parapet ladders must have an access level at the roof if the parapet is cut to permit passage through it. If the parapet is continuous, the access level is the top of the parapet. Steps or rungs for through fixed ladder extensions must be admitted from the extension, and the extension of the side rails must be flared to provide between 24 inches and 30 inches clearance between the side rails. When safety devices are provided, the maximum clearance distance between the side rail extensions must not exceed 36 inches. Fixed ladders must be used at a pitch no greater than 90 degrees from the horizontal, measured from the back side of the ladder. Cages for fixed ladders. The requirements for cages for fixed ladders are as follows. Horizontal bands must be fastened to the side rails of rail ladders or directly to the structure, building, or equipment for individual rung ladders. Vertical bars must be on the inside of the horizontal bands and must be fastened to them. Cages must not extend less than 27 inches or more than 30 inches from the center line of the step or rung and must not be less than 27 inches wide. Insides of cages must be clear of projections. Horizontal bands must be spaced at intervals not more than 4 feet apart, measured from the center line to center line. Cages for fixed ladders, continued. Vertical bars must be spaced at intervals not more than 9.5 inches, measured center line to center line. Bottoms of cages must be between 7 feet and 8 feet above the point of access to the bottom of the ladder. The bottom of the cage must be flared not less than 4 inches between the bottom horizontal band and the next higher band. Tops of cages must be a minimum of 42 inches above the top of the platform or point of access at the top of the ladder. There must be a way to access the platform or other point of access. Wells for fixed ladders. The requirements for wells for fixed ladders are as follows. Wells must completely encircle the ladder. Wells must be free of projections. Inside faces of wells on the climbing side of the ladder must extend between 27 inches and 30 inches from the center line of the step or rung. Inside widths of wells must be at least 30 inches. Bottoms of wells above the point of access to the bottom of the ladder must be between 7 feet and 8 feet. Ladder safety devices and related support systems for fixed ladders. The connection between the carrier or lifeline and the point of attachment to the body belt or harness must not exceed 9 inches in length. In addition, ladder safety devices and related support systems on fixed ladders must conform to the following. All safety devices must be able to withstand, without failure, a drop test consisting of a 500-pound weight dropping 18 inches. All safety devices must permit the worker to ascend or descend without continually having to hold, push, or pull any part of the device, leaving both hands free for climbing. All safety devices must be activated within 2 feet after a fall occurs and limit the descending velocity of an employee to 7 feet per second or less. Requirements for mounting ladder safety devices for fixed ladders. The requirements for mounting ladder safety devices for fixed ladders are as follows. Mounting for rigid carrier must be attached at each end of the carrier, with intermittent mounting spaced along the entire length of the carrier to provide the necessary strength to stop workers' falls. Mounting for flexible carriers must be attached at the end of the carrier. Cable guides for flexible carriers must be installed with a spacing between 25 feet and 40 feet along the entire length of the carrier to prevent wind damage to the system. Design and installation of mountings and cable guides must not reduce the strength of the ladder. Side rails and steps or rungs for side step fixed ladders must be continuous in extension. Defective ladders. Ladders needing repairs are subject to the following rules. Portable ladders with structural defects, such as broken or missing rungs, cleats, or steps, broken or split rails, corroded components, or other faulty or defective components, must be immediately marked as defective or tagged with "Do Not Use" or similar language and withdrawn from service until repaired. Fixed ladders with structural defects, such as broken or missing rungs, cleats, or steps, broken or split rails, or corroded components, must be withdrawn from service until repaired. Defective fixed ladders are considered withdrawn from use when they are immediately tagged with "Do Not Use" or similar language, or marked in a manner that identifies them as defective or blocked, such as with a plywood attachment that spans several rungs. Ladder repairs must restore the ladder to a condition meeting its original design criteria before the ladder is returned to use. Rules for stairways. The rules covering stairways and their components generally depend on how and when stairs are used. Specifically, there are rules for stairs used during construction and stairs used temporarily during construction, as well as rules governing stair rails and handrails. Stairways used during construction. The following requirements apply to all stairways used during construction. Stairways that will not be a permanent part of the building under construction must have landings at least 30 inches deep and 22 inches wide at every 12 feet or less of vertical rise. Stairways must be installed between 30 degrees and 50 degrees from the horizontal. Rules for stairways continued. Stairways used during construction continued. Variation in riser height or stair tread depth must not exceed 1/4 inch in any stairway system including any foundation structure used as one or more treads of the stairs. Doors and gates opening directly onto a stairway must have a platform that extends at least 20 inches beyond the swing of the door or gate. Metal pan landings and metal pan treads must be secured in place before filling. Stairway parts must be free of dangerous projections, such as protruding nails. Slippery conditions on stairways must be corrected. Workers must not use spiral stairways that will not be part of a permanent part of the structure. Rules for stairways continued. Temporary stairs. The following requirements apply to stairways used temporarily during construction. Except during construction of the stairway, do not use stairways with metal pan landings or treads if the treads and or landings have not been filled in with concrete or other materials, unless the pans of the stairs and or landings are temporarily filled in with wood or other materials. All treads and landings must be replaced when worn below the top edge of the pan. Do not use skeleton metal frame structures and steps where the treads and or landings will be installed later, unless the stairs are fitted with secured temporary treads or landings. Note, temporary treads must be made of wood or other solid material and installed full width and depth of the stair. Rules for stairways continued. Stair rails. The following general requirements apply to all stair rails. Stairways with 4 or more risers or rising more than 30 inches in height, whichever is less, must have a stair rail system installed along each unprotected side or edge. Stair rails must not be less than 36 inches in height. The top edge of a handrail must be between 36 inches and 37 inches from the upper surface of the tread. Stair rail systems and handrails must be surfaced to prevent injuries such as punctures or lacerations and to keep clothing from snagging. Rules for stairways continued. Stair rails continued. The ends of stair rail systems and handrails must be built to prevent dangerous projections such as rails protruding beyond the end post of the system. Unprotected sides and edges of stairway landings must have standard 42-inch guardrail systems. Intermediate vertical members, such as balusters used as guardrails, must not be more than 19 inches apart. Other intermediate structural members, when used, must be installed so that no openings are more than 19 inches wide. Screens or mesh, when used, must extend from the top rail to the stairway step and along the opening between the top rail supports. Rules for stairways continued. Handrails. Requirements for handrails are as follows. Handrails and top rails of stair rail systems must be able to withstand, without failure, at least 200 pounds of force applied within 2 inches of the top edge in any downward or outward direction at any point along the top edge. Handrails must not be more than 37 inches high, nor less than 30 inches from the upper surface of the handrail to the surface of the tread. Handrails must provide an adequate handhold for employees to grasp to prevent falls. Temporary handrails must have a minimum clearance of 3 inches between the handrail and walls, stair rail systems, and other objects. Rules for stairways continued. Handrails continued. Stairways with 4 or more risers, or that rise more than 30 inches in height, whichever is less, must have at least one handrail. Winding or spiral stairways must have a handrail to prevent use of areas where the tread width is less than 6 inches. Midrails. Midrails, screens, mesh, intermediate vertical members, or equivalent intermediate structural members must be provided between the top rail and stairway steps to the stair rail system. When midrails are used, they must be located midway between the top of the stair rail system and the stairway steps. Select the right ladder for the job. Select a ladder based on the expected load, your weight plus the weight of all your tools, materials, and equipment, the type of work to be done, and the correct height. There are 5 categories of ladder duty ratings, and always follow the manufacturer's instructions and labels on the ladder. For example, a Type 1A ladder has an extra duty rating. Its use is industrial and has a load capacity of 300 pounds. A Type 2 ladder is a medium duty ladder used in commercial applications and has a load rating of 225 pounds. Safety summary. Use a ladder that can sustain the maximum intended load. Follow the manufacturer's instructions and labels on the ladder. To determine the correct ladder, consider your weight plus the weight of your load. Do not exceed the load rating and always include the weight of all tools, materials, and equipment. Allow sufficient room to step off the ladder safely. Keep the area around the bottom and the top of the ladder clear of equipment, materials, and tools. If access is obstructed, secure the top of the ladder to a rigid support that will not deflect, and add a grasping device to allow workers safe access. Set a portable ladder at the proper angle. When a portable ladder is leaned against a wall, the bottom of the ladder should be 1/4 of the ladder's working length away from the wall, and extend the top of the ladder 3 feet above that surface, or secure the ladder at its top. Safety summary continued. Before starting work, survey the area for potential hazards, such as energized overhead power lines. Ladders shall have non-conductive side rails if they are used where the worker or the ladder can contact exposed energized electrical equipment. Keep all ladders and other tools at least 10 feet away from any power lines. Set the base of the ladder so that the bottom sits securely and both side rails are evenly supported. The ladder rails should be squared to the structure against which it is leaning, with both foot pads placed securely on a stable and level surface. When using a ladder in a high activity area, secure it to prevent movement and use a barrier to redirect workers and equipment. If the ladder is placed in front of a door, always block off the door. Safety summary continued. A competent person must visually inspect ladders for defects on a periodic basis and after any occurrence that could affect their safe use. Defects include, but are not limited to, structural damage, split or bent side rails, broken or missing rungs, steps, or cleats, loose components, and missing or damaged safety devices. Grease, dirt, or other contaminants that could cause slips or falls. Paint or stickers, except warning or safety labels, that could hide possible defects. Where a ladder has these or other defects, it must be immediately marked as defective or tagged with "Do Not Use" or similar language. Conclusion. Thank you for selecting Advanced Con Ed to provide the continuing education credits you need to fulfill your licensing requirements. We hope you found this presentation helpful in making you a better tradesman. This presentation is available to you anytime in the event you need to reference it in the future. Again, thank you for reviewing Advanced Con Ed's presentation of Portable Ladder Safety.